Hello, friends, and welcome back to Talk of the Apprentice, a mini-series where we break down
the latest UK series of The Apprentice. Before we begin, can I just ask you something, Hannah? How are you today?
I'm good.
And how have things been?
They've been good.
You see, what I'm doing here is I'm establishing rapport. I'm getting to know you. And do you have a horse? And what's the horse's name?
You really should have asked about the horse.
I should have asked, because I could have got a lower price if we'd known about the horse. This was a fun episode.
This is one of my favourite tasks ever in The Apprentice. I look forward to this every single year.
This is true. She's not lying. Every year when we watch it, you always say, I love the... What is it called?
Shopping task?
Shopping task, buying task.
Buying task.
This time round, let's jump straight in. They were sent to Stratford-upon-Avon, home of Shakespeare, and there were even some subtle hints from Lord Sugar that he might be familiar with Shakespeare.
God, he just wouldn't stop, would he? It was a bit awkward.
He wouldn't stop.
They kept cutting to Baroness Brady, who looked quite uncomfortable. Like, it wasn't funny. It didn't add... At one point, he was like... I've got a quote here that I would usually use in this situation or something. And then he was like, but it's not relevant for that. And he still said the quote. So I'm like, why did he say it? It was just like someone had quickly gone through, some sort of intern had quickly Googled top Shakespeare lines, and they were just trying to fit them and cram them in any crevice they could.
Yeah, he clearly just had a big A4 sheet of quotes in front of him, and he was determined to read every single one. It's funny you mentioned Baroness Brady, because clearly the editor was like, well, we've got to cut away, but they clearly had no footage of either her or Tim like smiling.
Yeah.
So like, we've got to just cut to Karen looking annoyed.
She just was not having any of it.
Well, as they say in business, if music be the food of love... Podcast on. It started with Lord Sugar coming to their house, and he seemed delighted to be doing that, didn't he?
He rocked up at the house. I mean, it's clear that something was going to happen. If I was in that house and they were like, we're going to just film some shots, I'd be like, Lord Sugar's coming.
Yeah, there was like 50 different cameramen in that house. So clearly something was going down.
And at this point, like, it's not out of the norm for Lord Sugar to turn up at the house at least once, sometimes twice in a series.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. They all seemed quite shocked. I don't know that I would have been as shocked, but...
It's because you've seen the show The Apprentice before.
Yeah. He mixed up the teams for some reason. That didn't really impact us that much.
What I love about stuff like that, when they go like, you will go on this team, you go on that team, you can just tell that is like the most direct producer meddling of like, how can we create better TV? Who is more troublesome that we can move around? Because there's no logic to it.
You're right. And also like, what if I don't want to go to that team? What if I'm happy with my original team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they used to name the teams?
They did. You're right. They always had big planning sessions on what they were called.
Yeah, they were always called like dynamic.
Yeah. There would obviously be someone who'd workshopped ideas beforehand and was like, it's this word that means the energy when apart is weak, but when it comes together is actually really strong. And it was like, and when translated from,
ancient Greek.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Maybe I imagined it, but I feel like there was maybe a passing reference to someone going like, obviously we liked him on Wave Team. I feel like someone maybe mentioned a team name. Maybe they just cut all of that out.
Maybe we missed it. And actually, this won't go out as a clip because sometimes people are like, watch the goddamn show. Maybe they have got names. The problem is we watch the show so carefully, we take notes. Sometimes we miss stuff, all right?
I think we wouldn't miss them naming the teams in episode 1. I think they cut it out because it's boring and not relevant to the show.
At the top of this week's Apprentice, we had Dean saying, this is right down my street.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard used before.
It's not right up his alley. He's saying right down his...
It's right up my street.
Right up my street.
Right down my street isn't a saying, is it?
Does he say right down my street?
This is right down my street.
This is right down my street. There's something about people who go on The Apprentice where they can't ever quite get a phrase right. It's like too many cooks spoil the soup. It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. It still works.
It's just a bit off.
Yeah.
This was part of the big showdown between probably the two greatest rivals in Apprentice history, Max England and Carlo, surname.
Max England versus Carlo going for PM. I feel like Max England maybe wasn't even interested in being PM.
No.
But as soon as Carlo put himself forward, we've seen the previous episode, it was Max England versus Carlo.
Yeah.
And this episode, it continued.
The novelty of him being called Max England has not worn off.
Nope.
Her Majesty's greatest gentleman spy. The thing is, here's the thing. He clearly doesn't really like Carlo, or at the very least finds him frustrating. But I get it. And also, as tough as he was on Carlo this episode, I think he handled him a lot better than other people would, because I think Carlo could be incredibly disruptive. Whereas Max Max England is almost like a teacher where he's just like, no. He's just like, shut up, Carlo. Anytime Carlo tries to start trouble, he's just like, no.
The issue with Carlo is he was trying to stir the pot. Whether he's self-aware enough to understand that giving someone feedback in his tone and his manner is prickly and going to rub people the wrong way. Like, I'm unsure how self-aware Carlo was of what he was doing. Was it, option A, he had a real vendetta against Max England and vice versa? And actually, I'm going to say something after you've just done a job to put you down and put you in your place because you're putting me in my place. Or is it just that Carlo genuinely believes he is amazing at building rapport with people and actually...
kind of at people, I'll be honest.
People. And... does he just think, I am a master at this and I'm going to give you some feedback? And I kind of worry it's option B, because as we saw in the magic shop, he thought he just was amazing.
He did do the most annoying thing a person can do in a group project, which is to do nothing, but then later pipe up and complain and like dig at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't be silent, nay, spiritually absent during all the... at one point they were like, Carlo, have you got those notes? And he was just like, no, I just don't. I haven't done anything.
When Max England was like, are you paying attention, Carlo? Like, are you with us?
Yeah, he was like daydreaming.
Earth to Carlo, can you just write down a postcode? Also, how hard was it to like... the pocket watch, you write pocket watch, you underline it, and then you have all the list of addresses that you could get a pocket watch. The fact that he was flipping through that notebook where you could see he'd made like different one lines on each page with random postcodes and random stuff. Like, how hard is it to just organize your notes?
They say like the best revenge is living well. Like the best revenge he could have had on Max England would just be to be competent and do a good job and be like, Max is crazy. I did a wonderful job this week. And he was just completely daydreaming. Anyway, let's jump into it.
There were so many brilliant moments on the shopping task of The Apprentice. Nadia confidently saying she knows how to shear a sheep.
Again,
being one of them.
One of the least surprising things is like last week when she said she could sing. I'm like, of course you've sheared a sheep, Nadia. You've done everything.
We also had the guy who didn't know what rhubarb was.
Yeah. Do you know the thing, by the way, that if you're a background, I think they're called background artists now, like an extra in a movie, and you need to look like you're having a conversation, you can just say rhubarb, 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 and it looks like you're talking. That's
like when you say prune to get your cheekbones up. They always say models are always going prune. And apparently it helps. Do you see that? Rhubarb, 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 rhubarb.
Rhubarb. If me and you were in the background of a scene, we go...
Wait, let's do it now.
Yeah, rhubarb.
No, say it mute. I'm changing up the rhubarb.
Yeah, me too. I'm an actor.
No, you're an extra.
Still an actor. Hannah hasn't got any respect for extras. And you were one yourself once.
I was.
Can we talk about how when they were handing out the lists of stuff, right, before they went on the road, and they were going through the list, there's always some comedy in The Apprentice of like, these people don't know what things are. And sometimes they don't know what simple things are, like rhubarb. But some of them, it was like a coal hud. And then the show...
concave shoes or something?
The show was like playing it for laughs. They didn't know what these things are. First of all, these are very obscure things. Again, what has this got to do with business?
Hey.
That you don't know horseshoes.
Hey.
Hey. Speaking of farms, hey. Like the comedy doesn't work when you've picked incredibly obscure things.
Speaking of is it concave or conclave?
I think it was concave.
I'm confusing it with the new movie.
You've got Oscars on the brain.
Concave shoes when Jordan was like, it must be something to do with jousting. Yeah. And the rest of the team were very confidently like, yeah.
It's probably jousting.
It's probably jousting.
Didn't he say it's like knights' metal shoes that knights wear? How many knights are you encountering, Jordan?
If someone said that in a group situation, to be honest, I'd probably back it.
Yeah, I suppose you've got nothing else.
How would you even come up with that? He must have some reference point.
Jousting, yeah, something we all encounter every day.
So we had two things that happened before the team even set out. We had Max England giving very clear, detailed instructions to his team, which I really thought was quite impressive because we first watched Dean give absolutely no instruction apart from just like, buy, sell.
Do a great job.
Which, to be honest, I would have struggled if they were like, what's the plan? Everyone turns into a baby, don't they? They're like, how do we sell things? What do we do? Like, everyone's like, what's the price strategy? And to be honest, if someone had asked me that, I don't know, because I don't know how much each item is. I actually have no idea. I think Max England was like, go for 50%. Start with 50%.
But he also said, don't insult them, which is smart, because that's what they always do. And we did see a lot of that this episode, but we'll get to that.
And on the other team, we had the vote for sub PM, the girl who made them vote twice.
Oh, God.
Dean is PM, and he appointed
Mia.
And then the other girl jumped in and
Malika.
was like, I've actually sold more.
Yeah, but it was this weird, like, quite mean thing where he'd very clearly picked Mia. He'd even given reasons. And then she was just like, I think it should be me. And everyone was like, okay. And then insisted on a vote. Obviously, she lost the vote because everyone was like, you're being mean.
Yeah, and also you're being a bit disruptive in this group. Like, no one's going to back her.
No.
I was surprised the PM even let it go to a vote, because if it was me, I'd have been like, no, I've made a decision. It's Mia. As PM, I need to be able to really feel confident with the person on the other team can lead.
Yes.
And if I've picked someone, as we saw in the other group where unfortunately Carlo didn't get PM.
No.
Or sub-PM.
Thank God he didn't.
God, he didn't. Well, I mean, for spoiler, they still lost.
Yeah,
So
true.
God knows what would have happened if Carlo had been on that team.
It probably would have been very funny, to be fair.
And this part of The Apprentice was comedy gold, right? Malika was like, let's vote.
Yeah.
No one voted for her. I don't think she realised no one voted for her, because she was like, let's vote again. And then someone had to be like, we did and no one voted for you.
No, I think she knew they voted, but then there was like more information came out. There was something where she was like, oh, because of that, we must vote again. And then I think even Mia was just like, no.
We're not voting again.
We're not
I'm
voting
PM.
again. I think she said like, no one's voted for you.
I like that Dean kept on calling the pocket watch a stopwatch.
Yeah.
And kept being corrected. That made me laugh every time.
I also love that they phoned up a guy and he was like, I have an 18 karat gold watch. And they were like, sounds cheap. Yeah, we'll go for that. Drove all the way to it. And then they were like, an 18 karat gold watch is
For
expensive.
£1,000?
You don't have to know anything about jewelry to know that, like, everyone's heard of carats.
Yeah.
Surely.
We saw lots of different haggling techniques. We saw Malika upsell the shearing of the sheep.
Mia goes in, she goes, how much would you usually sell this for? I think she said 40 or
Around
something. And then she went, can you do 10? The woman, honestly,
She
kind
looked
of
like
looked.
she was debating it.
And then Malika, for no reason, goes, because they usually retail for about 25 to 30, right? Which also we learned later, she just made up, which is even more insane. That she didn't even know that. She just made up a higher number than they were going for.
Yeah, 15 quid above what they were pitching at. So she was like, great, then I'll do it for 25 quid.
Yeah, and then they got her down to like 20 or whatever. But I cannot even fathom what her logic was. I think she was just trying to undermine Mia.
It was painful though, because it was one of those scenarios where Malika knew she'd done something wrong.
Yeah.
And she kept on trying to like check. You know when you're
Yeah.
like, am I in the bad books? Am I not? Because in the car, she kept on being like, I think that went really well, everyone. I feel like we're all okay.
And she was sucking up as well.
She was trying to, yeah, like Mia, you did a really good job. She was waiting for someone to bite. And Mia did. She was like, actually, you were very disruptive and you nearly cost us, you know, spending a lot more. So actually, I don't think it went well. And it was so funny. It's like, you know, am I in the bad books? Oh, crap. Yeah,
It's
I
like
am.
when you're a kid with the parents, like, hey, is everything all right? She's like, you did a wonderful job, Mia.
Yeah.
And Mia's like, no, Malika, you upsold us for some reason. I think actually, a few people excluded, there's a certain level of competency this season that is higher than normal. Like, quite a few of them are kind of good at business. Like, Max England has kind of got it together.
Yes.
Mia was pretty good. Like, even, you know, Nadia's a bit of a rogue agent, but she's like good on the phone. She's like, you got that item? I want you to save that for me, my darling. You know, like,
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way. Like, they, you know, we have had people like last season who were clueless.
Yeah.
It was a whole season of Carlos. So I feel like they've tried a little bit harder this time to get some vaguely business-minded people.
A highlight of this episode for me was Nadia haggling for the fleece when the guy came in with, was it £30? And she said, I've got an offer for you, my friend. £1.50. £1.50.
And then the other guy, I can't remember his name, but he was like, this poor guy's got to literally shear a whole sheep
Yes.
for £1.50. He's not going to do that. Like, use your brain.
The rest of the team's faces when she went in with £1.50, because that is insulting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess her thing would be like, I'm going to go comically low and then I can drive him up to £7 or whatever. But it's like, it's so insulting to even suggest that someone shear a whole sheep for you for £1.50.
The way she propositioned it as if it was going to be good as well. I've got an offer for you, my friend.
My friend is the best part.
My friend.
My friend.
Building rapport. She's been Carlo 101, how to build rapport.
Carlo talking about the rapport thing was so weird because he was so obsessed with building rapport, but kind of just for the sake of it. Like, he didn't go, and rapport means lower price. Like, by the end, after his disastrous attempt to buy that quill, he was like, Carlo, you did a bad job. And he was like, yes, but the rapport. And it's like, but you're not making friends with these people. Like, the whole reason you're doing this is to get a good price, and you didn't.
One thing I think you should never do in a haggling situation is walk away and fur as a team.
Yeah, Max messed it up there.
Max messed up there. It loses the momentum of the £12.50, £7.50, £8, blah, 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 the high. If you've got a second to think about it, you then have to come in with like an offer. You may as well keep going until you get what is your final bottom price.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm saying £8 and you're saying 15, can you meet me more in the £9 mark, more in the £10 mark? What is your final price? And then you could look at the team and say, should we go for it? The problem is people are scared of making a decision.
Yes.
And you saw in that moment, Max didn't want to make the final decision so that more heads were on the chopping block if it was a wrong decision.
It was a surprising moment of kind of weakness from Max.
Yeah.
He seemed quite a decisive guy, but then suddenly when it was on his shoulders to like pick a price, you could see him like chicken out a bit and be like...
Was this for the horseshoes or something? Because it was for a very small priced item, which is the worst time to do something in this, like this in. Like if it was a stopwatch that was very expensive, you might say, I need to go away and think of it.
Pocket watch.
A pocket, sorry.
All right, Dean.
Because, the price of gold is the price of gold and the price of silver is the price of silver. So they're only going to go down X amount and then you've got your final offer. The horseshoe was only £8. Make a decision, Max.
He'd got him down to quite a good price. Also, you've got to have a sense of like, what am I buying? Like they were buying used horseshoes.
Yeah.
Basically worthless. I mean, the metal itself is probably worth a small amount. But Jordan, to be fair, when he was haggling, he was going super low with the price. Because I think he understood like, this is not a...
Also, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah, exactly. Like they're probably happy to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because Jordan got him down to a really low price. I can't remember what it was, like £6 or whatever. He got him down really low because ultimately it's just easy money for the farrier. That's what a horse person is called.
Is
a farrier. Isn't that a fun name?
We also saw Malika say to the flower shop lady that quality just wasn't important to them, of which is very offensive to a person whose whole business is like creating beautiful flowers.
Yeah, I just love the implication of like, could you give us some of your crap, please?
Yeah.
Have you got anything in here that's rubbish? And it's like, this woman's like, no, like this is a flower shop where we try really hard. Like, you can't just come in here and be like, give us your worst products.
Give us your crappiest, deadest flowers.
Yeah, it's so funny to be like, we don't care about quality. What have you got that's crap?
Then going outside and shouting that the flower shop was the best in the world was awkward.
Where did that come
Baroness
from?
Brady watching on under her sunglasses, just thinking...
I don't know if like a producer suggested that or whatever, because that idea came out of nowhere.
No,
it was really
I think
weird.
that was them. I think they were like, we'll promote your shop. I guess what they wanted to say is, look, you're on telly.
Yeah.
This might make it. If you give us a good price, you might make it. So I think that was like...
Maybe that's the implication.
The underlying.
I will say they displayed something there of like, haggling is not that complicated. Like, again, to the Max England walkie away point, like 90% of haggling is just being so annoying and overwhelming that the person just gets worn down.
Yeah.
That's why you don't walk away. Like, we saw it in this episode where people got quite surprisingly good deals because they just kept going like, can you take another 10p off? And in the end, the person is just overwhelmed and bored and is just like, fine, you can have it for $8.63 or whatever.
Fine, yeah, you can have the rhubarb at the price I originally said. You could tell that guy was just a bit like, just get out my
Just
shop.
leave me alone. Sometimes you can just see like a car crash coming from a million miles away. When they were like, Lord Sugar will love that we've given him more rhubarb than he asked for. He'll love having extra. He'll love that we haven't done the task properly. And then we're laughing about it. And then, of course, they were like, no.
You're penalised. I wouldn't have thought that would be an issue, to be honest. I know that's bad, but I don't know that I would have thought that was going to get them penalised. If anything, getting more of the thing that they want is surely better, but...
Yeah, but that's real world logic. This is... The problem with the apprentices, they're not on your side.
Yeah.
Sugar and Brady and all them, they don't want you to succeed. They're looking for things to fault you on. And they give you... The whole point of the task is you have to get a certain amount of a certain thing. If they're going to be a dick about it, they'll be a dick about it. You know what I mean?
True. One of my favourite haggling moments of this episode is the guy who was like, I'm going to work in percentages because I've worked out percentages. You could get more money off than pound off. But the guy couldn't do percentages. Why would you do that? He couldn't do the maths. They ended up paying more money.
Because he was also trying to work out percentage per bottle for like 300 bottles. It was like so much mental maths that he couldn't do.
It's crazy to have a strategy if you can't do the maths. I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't be able to work that out very quickly under pressure.
I think we could get a better deal if we did it in French. No, I don't speak French.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point?
But I will give it a molto bene try.
One of our favourite lines from this episode was when Dean was like, That's a good deal, Dan.
That's a good deal, Dan. Someone else was closing the deal and he just piped up, that's a good deal, Dan.
That's a good deal, Dan.
That's a good deal,
You're
Dan.
going to want to shake on that, Dan.
That's a good deal, Dan.
We really enjoyed that. We also had the guy who created the hook, and then they asked how much it was.
Yeah, business 101. Don't add a fish hook to a snow shovel, spend ages doing it, and then ask the person what it costs, because they've got you then.
Was he called Luke?
Maybe he was called Luke.
We think he's called Luke.
He was the sub-team leader.
That was entrepreneurial skills. I'm very glad that he wasn't punished and wasn't penalised. Like,
Yes.
he was trying his best in that scenario. He came up with something last minute. Did it work? No. Was it worth taking a punt on? Because I think it was 13 quid versus getting fined. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
that should be rewarded. Okay, it didn't quite pay off, but it showed like quick thinking, entrepreneurial skills. Like, it annoys me when he had to be brought back in because he was sub PM anyway. But like, it annoyed me that people were going in on him. You know, Baroness Brady thought it was silly. I don't think it was silly.
No, because also the other alternative was simply that they didn't get anything at all, because they
Yeah.
only had the hook and it didn't have the pole.
Yeah.
So he was like, I might as well try and make it.
Sure.
You know, versus Max England, that I'll be honest, I kind of missed the details of how Max didn't do the wine, but Max somehow missed £200 worth of wine, which is like way worse.
I think he was worried about getting there on time. But the problem is that the wine was a high price item. So strategically, he was going to get fined more for missing the wine versus like, I don't know what they went to get instead, rhubarb or whatever. It was silly doing that. They should have focused on the wine.
Also, the fine for being late is probably less than the fine for missing the wine.
That's a good point.
I was a little disappointed that Max kind of turned on him. I guess Max had to like deflect somewhere, but if I was Max, I'd be like, just deflect to Carlo.
I think Max's A strategy was deflect to Carlo. But
Yeah.
like, you know, if you're on a sinking ship and one of you's going, I guess he was like, well, I don't want it to be me. The reaction of the boys, obviously coming back. I mean, spoiler, obviously, we saw Carlo go. We weren't shocked in any way, shape or form.
It would have been astounding if Carlo didn't go.
And we watched a bit of You're Fired, the after show, and all of the guests, they have 3 guests who like talk through the show.
One of them was from Gladiators.
Held up that You're Hired. They didn't think he should have gone. I mean, it was clear for me. He was the obvious. He did nothing. He was disruptive. He didn't seem to have a lot of get up and go about him. Maybe, you know, maybe we didn't see the best side of him, but he, in my opinion, 100% should have been fired.
Definitely 100,000%.
I think he probably should have been fired last week.
Yeah, I think it's kind of crazy he wasn't fired earlier. He doesn't do anything, but he's also annoying.
I don't think Max had a vendetta against him for no reason.
No.
I think he was rubbish.
And I think, again, Max did a really good job of containing him, because I think if a weaker or, I don't know, less forceful PM had been there, I think Carlo could have really run riot. Like, can you imagine if Carlo had been sub-team leader? It would have just been chaos.
Just for TV, I would have loved to see
me too.
Carlo as a PM. Like,
Yes.
I really would have. He was very watchable. He was very entertaining. He came across quite well on You're Fired as like, he's got mates.
I don't think he's like a bad person.
No, 100%. I don't think he did well on this show in terms of like showcasing his business entrepreneurial skills. But I would have loved to have seen him in a role of power in this, because I think that would have been fantastic. Maybe it has surprised us all.
We have lost a bit of good TV with Carlo going. We've still got a few characters. We've still got Nadia.
We should have acknowledged the horse.
Yes. If the horse had been acknowledged. There was the horse there. What's the horse's name? You know.
We saw Luke, we think he's called Luke, and we saw Max England, whose name we very much know, go back to the house. The reaction versus last week, where the girls walked in and everyone was just like, oh, yay. Obviously, there are a few hugs. The reaction to them coming back was like a reunion of the Spice Girls or something. I've never seen anything like it.
It's like they just scored a World Cup winning goal. Everyone's like jumping. Oh my God, it's how I'd react if I saw Max England. They'd be like, oh my God, it's Max England. And it's so funny because they're always so like bitchy and mean to each other in the task, but they all love each other in the house.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I would have loved to have seen if Carlo had walked back in, what the reaction would be.
You know that meme that's like, hey.
What y'all doing?
What y'all doing?
I don't know. Maybe he was very popular. Sometimes you get those people who you think they're a nightmare, and actually they're really well liked.
I think outside of the business scenario, I think he could be quite funny, Carlo.
When Carlo was going down, he said, I think people see me as a threat.
Yeah. And credit to Lord Sugar. He always spells out, he's like, what exactly have you done at any point that is threatening?
Carlo was like, they actually just all really fancy me.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone's coming for me.
I'm too popular is the problem.
I've had more boat hooks than you've had hot dinners.
Has he? His business is like computers. How many boat hooks is... Why has he had one boat hook?
I've never held a boat hook in my whole life.
Oh, you haven't lived.
And that was a wrap on the app.
It's a good app.
And we had a preview for next week, which is where they make food. They make food.
Oh, yeah.
We see this quite a lot. They're all in the hairnets, and I love these sort of tasks.
Oh, yeah. It's very, business oriented. It's what business is all about.
Business.
Making people who've never cooked batch cook things.
So we look forward to that. But that's a wrap.
How are you finding this series overall?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Thank you, Hannah.
I'm enjoying it.
I am too. I think it's got juice.
I don't feel the super excitement in my tummy on Thursdays to watch it. Do you?
I do, but I think it's because we're coming off Traitors, which
Yes.
is like the ultimate high. I cannot wait. And also we're watching Severance, which also is one that I really wait for.
True.
So we've been treated to a lot of good TV.
I don't feel that feeling, but then I really laugh throughout the episode and I find it very enjoyable. Do you know what I mean?
Agreed.
So, yeah, I'd say pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. We haven't had any filler episodes. People are funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you an offer, my friend.
£1.50.
That's a good deal.
That's a good deal, Dan.
£1.50. That's a good deal, Dan.
Oh, no, Dan.
That's a good deal, Dan.
That's a good deal, Dan.
We should just one more thing. We should talk about Carlo when he was doing that deal in the magic shop. And the guy was like, lowest I can go, £10. And he was like, I'm going to hold in my hand, shake your hand, £9. And you can see everyone just go like, no.
God.
The guy was getting annoyed as well.
That's a good deal, Dan.
That's a bad deal, Carlo.
Goodbye.
Well, I'm Benedict Townsend.
Oh, and I've been Hannah Townsend.
Make sure to follow the show on TikTok and Instagram. We'll also have a regular episode of the podcast coming out kind of soon. We haven't done them in a little while, so that's
Yay.
exciting.
So for all our alienated American viewers and listeners who are definitely not listening to this.
Yeah, come back.
Come back.
Come back, Yanks. And we will see you next week with more Apprentice.
Bye.